Welcome back to Bunny Banter, the first and only podcast for everything Killer Bunnies. I'm your host Matt, here with co-host Mikey.
Hello.
And as a guest today we have Chris.
Yay!
What are we doing today, Mikey?
Today we are going to go through our favorite and band cards in the Violet Booster.
Yep, continuing the booster review series with Quest Violet. Mixed feelings on this expansion, it seems. I know Chris and I had the problem of there were too many cards that we wanted to pick, and Mikey had the opposite problem, so.
Mikey didn't like Violet.
Oh no.
Nope.
Well, we'll see how this goes. So we'll start with the band cards. My band card is LoJack Kojak. It's a non-aggressive, rolls a 20-sided die, and it may be used once by a player to take the carrot with the same number rolled on the clear die from either Cabala's marker or an opponent's, which seems innocent enough until you read the next sentence. If a player owned the carrot, then he must return all of his other carrots to Cabala's market. So if I roll a 7 and Mikey has carrot number 7, I get to steal carrot number 7 and Mikey loses all of his other carrots. Which is a huge delay of game, especially with lower player counts. So I've just had too many unfortunate delay of games with LoJack Kojak that I had to put on my ban list. But it can be in a larger player count. It can be acceptable. You know, in a larger player count, players usually won't have more than 7 carrots or 8. 8's a good number. 8's enough. So in that context, unless it's played in this extremely late game, it won't have too much toxicity. But in the groups that we play in with, 3 to 4 player games, sometimes even a 2-player game, we don't talk about 2-player games. But even a 3-player game, very spooky, very spooky. Don't play this. It's very mean.
I can see some value in it if it's an absolute, this player is that far ahead and there is no other out.
Even then, delay of game feels bad.
It does feel bad, but it's not feel good bunnies, it's killer bunnies.
It becomes Killer Bunnies becomes a game of endurance at that point. Who will leave early after we realize that we have an extra 3 hours to play that we didn't know about? Oh no! But yes, it is proper min-max strategy to play it. But feels bad, very aggressive. Okay, Chris, what's your band card?
I put random paintball assault. Most of the reason I'm banning this card is for the longest time we didn't know what exactly to use it for. And then when we discovered the Omega Pawn, it became more playable and started catching popularity as a meme almost. But even so, I enjoy the Omega Pawn, but I don't see it as a necessary evil, especially to use Ice 9 on to get it to work. So that's why I put it as a ban card.
Okay. Moving on to Mikey's band card. Mikey, what do you got?
I chose bunnies in black. The word ban isn't necessarily a good word to describe this. This is more of a card that I just don't think is necessary. I don't really see why it's important that it's in the game. Bunnies in black, for those of you who don't know, protects anyone's players from alien abduction for the duration of the game, or may be used once to retrieve bunnies safely, may be used at any time. I don't see it as a negative thing when Area 51 is played on one of my bunnies, because you still own the bunny, and if you don't get it back, well, you at the end of the game, it still counts as having a bunny. So then, if you don't have any other bunnies in the circle, but you have that, it's yeah, you. And if somebody else gets their alien abducted, or their bunny abducted by aliens, well then look at that, you got a bunny back. So I don't know. I just don't see this as a necessary card. So I don't know if ban's the right word, but it's definitely a card that I would just get rid of. I don't see it as necessary.
It's worth noting that at the time of release, Violet was released right after the Red Booster. Red Booster had the highly explosive missile platform Hemp, which punished bunnies in space. So maybe it was released as kind of a counter to the counter
That makes
in
sense.
some sense. But I think Jeff realized that first sentence there is almost irrelevant in the full set, which is
Mhm.
why in Conquest Violet, the card Federal Agents, which is essentially the copy of this card, does not have that first sentence. It's only the rescuing bunnies. And it's very important to note that you can rescue bunnies that aren't yours, and you get to steal them, which is the main use of this card.
Mhm.
But yes, I completely agree. The first sentence has more or less become completely irrelevant in the full set. Chris is doing things.
Sorry.
Okay, now that we've gotten through the banned cards, we get to go into the more positive section. Our favorite cards, starting with number 3. My pick is Bunny Hop, a very underrated special. It's non-aggressive, and it can be used once by a player to force any 2 adjacent players to exchange their bottom and top run cards. So I found the most useful way to use this is set up your top and bottom run cards so that you have 2 extremely low value cards. These could be even completely useless cards like Delinquent Miners or one of the guy girl weapons that isn't currently playable. You know, any of those type of worthless cards. And then with the player who's adjacent to you, just swap with what they have. Regardless of what they have, you'll profit. And sometimes you'll get something really good if you time it right. So it's just an excellent disruption card, and I'm a big fan of those because it rewards players who pay attention. It's very comparable to Top Run Rotate, except a bit more controlled because you're only doing it between 2 players, and you also get the double benefits of doing the top and bottom run card. And the other opponents will not be mad that you mess them up, just the one opponent. Occasionally, you could play this between 2 opponents as well, but that's a bit more of a meme case, I think. I've seen it done several times. I don't quite agree with it in practice. I think this card definitely functions more in a hidden investments type philosophy, or more so the reverse of hidden investments, where you have the weakest investments and you trade them for the strongest. So it's an interesting card that has plenty of uses and can be quite strong if used correctly. So that was my number 3, Bunny Hop. What you got, Chris?
I chose Run Amok. This just feels really good if you can read your opponent's plays. If you see, they might have. I need a good example. If you're afraid they might have a card from the London expansion that could disrupt some of your plays, and you see them put a London card face down, you can play Run Amok and see if you can hit the good target. So it's a good card if you're paying attention, and it's also a good chance to see if your opponents have good poker faces when they set their cards down. So that's why I chose it.
I found it interesting to remember that Run Amok and Bunny Hop were in the same booster because they're quite similar in nature but have very different uses and application. I think Run Amok is the more flexible one, but in the case of doing the setup work, I think Bunny Hop is the stronger one. So it's quite cool, those interactions. Okay, what's your number 3, Mikey?
My number 3 is Reversal of Order. I just when I saw this and I was thinking about what I was going to choose. Every card game needs at least some card that reverses the order. I mean, you have Uno, you can do that a lot. So I just it just seems like a card that should be in a card game. Uh, and it's always nice to get 2 consecutive turns. Um, it's a nice way to be able to get to do that without having to have a triplet. If you have maybe something really specific that you're planning on doing and you need to do it right away. Um, so I don't know. Yeah.
I was actually very close to playing reverse of order on my band card because I've been in so many games where reverse of order is played, and then for the rest of the game we're all confused at which direction the game is going, especially in a full set game where it's like, oh, we've been going clockwise the whole game and now we're going clockwise. However, in a recent game, I finally got the southpaw clause relevant where there was a left-handed player in the game and we were going counterclockwise, so that player was able to choose 5 carrots. So that was cool.
Huh.
Other than that, I'm not a fan of going counterclockwise.
It's a good excuse to call out somebody on 6 cards, though.
Yeah, if you're enforcing Hex to screw up, this can be quite harsh. Because someone starts playing their turn when they shouldn't, and then it's like, oh no, they have 6 cards in their hand when they shouldn't. Oh, I guess they lose their next turn and a carrot and discard ram card. And
It also sets up a run amok to see what your opponents have
that's true.
out of order.
Even when you're non-enforcing Hex to screw up, you get free information by them accidentally flipping the card at the wrong time. So it has great strategic benefits by forcing the opponents to misplay, but I usually get caught by it too, so feels bad for me. Okay, those were the number 3 picks. Time to move on to the number 2, hashtag level 2. My number 2 pick was Random Paintball Assault. So of course, we already mentioned this card. I'll explain what it does. This card can be placed under any bunny or pawn. You roll the 8 dice, and the bunny or pawn becomes the same color as the highest, with the exception of black. If it's a bunny, then the bunny will die, so it feels bad. But typically, I've tended to use this on pawns, because if multiple dice roll the highest, then the pawn or bunny becomes multicolor and gets the benefits of both. So in theory, you could create a red and pink gleeful bunny to generate $8 per turn if you had the correct rolls. The Omega Pawn that Chris mentioned is combining this with Ice 9. There's an Abu's Absurdities on it now, where you create a pawn of every color, which has great benefits, but is also stolen quite easily. But just because of the meme value, I had to make this my number 2 pick. Random Paintball Assault. Okay, Chris, what's your number 2?
I chose La Hot Peppers. I found this card to be exceptionally useful when you don't think it's going to be. It's kind of an out to the opponents that actually have cabbage and water saved up, because they may have some saved up, but they usually don't have that much saved up. So you can really catch them off guard with extra feed.
You gonna tell the story behind that one?
I
I got it.
I played it kind of as almost as a meme. I played it on Matthew when I already had like a 10 and a 12.
Yeah, it was a random feed the bunny 10, 12.
It was already feed 10, 12, and then doubling it made it
10, 24.
Yeah.
And
it was actually relevant.
Yeah, that would have seemed like a weird play, because how am I going to feed 12? But as a meme, I think I have like $9. Just to try to do it, I tried to draw the infinite, and I drew 10, 15, so I would have had enough if it wasn't for the lot hat peppers.
Yep.
So it actually caused that bunny to die that game, so it was relevant even on such a big effect. So it's a low value card in general, but it's definitely meme worthy when it works.
The artwork is kind of fun on it too.
Oh yeah. Okay, Mikey, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Cool Change. This card, essentially, when you play it, you can replace all or some of your 7 cards with new cards from the draw pile. And sometimes, you're just playing, and you just have crappy cards. Like, what if you have all weapons and no bunnies? What do? Well, this is the card for you. Play Cool Change and exchange all 7 of your cards for something new, and hope that you just don't get all weapons again. That'd be kind of weird if there were 7 weapons in a row, though. But whatever. It's random.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Also, the artwork is pretty cool. It features some psychic penguins. Now, here's something that I just noticed. I'm reading off the Killer Bunnies fandom wiki page. And under interactions, it says this card features the yellow ball with red stripe, which it does, which sad day for you if somebody decides that you can't use it, but whatever. Or anyway, but it says funny enough, the only colors on the card that aren't blue are yellow and red, but that's wrong because there's a pink bunny holding, and it's wearing orange and green, so that's a problem. But
what it probably was is an earlier printing of the card might have featured only those colors.
it has the other variations of the image, and it's the same.
Well, there you go. We'll never know. Maybe the alpha printings. I'm guessing they have the Epsilon Delta series as the alternative, but who knows? We'd have to ask Jeff. In general, the Killer Bunnies wiki is not a reliable source. As Glenn says, the benefits of the wiki is that anyone can edit it. The downside of the wiki is that anyone can edit it.
Yep.
Okay, that was Mikey's number 2. Moving on to the number 1, the moment everyone's been waiting for. I accidentally revealed it already on the YouTube, so feels bad. But here we go. Insights is my number 1 pick. Oh, it's such an excellent card. I think in general the community values it a lot. I think a lot of groups value it significantly less than the groups I've played in. Because especially in Remix, which is 15 carats, I've played Insights, and I've gotten a relevant amount of real money, not Kabbalah, real money trades for the knowledge. There have been several games where, it started out pretty innocent. It's like, oh yeah, I'll give you a quarter if you show me those. 25 cents profit, that's great. The next trade was like, I'll give you all the change in my pocket for that knowledge. It's like, oh, I'm rich. I've earned $1 this game. The next trade, I'll give you $2 for that knowledge. Oh, I've earned $3 this game. What's going on? I should start playing professionally. And then in a 3-player, different game, I earned another $2 in one night. It's like, this card has earned more money than Bunny Banter. As of recording this episode. And that's not my cut of Bunny Banter. This card has earned more than all of Bunny Banter. So I had to pick it just because looking at the top 5 cards of the small carrot deck and knowing 5 carrots that will lose, there are some players, especially in a larger group where there's more likelihood of such players existing, that will pay real life money for that knowledge. Is Killer Bunnies paid to win? No, they actually usually lost those games, which was ironic. But it's a strategy. They say the best card in the game is the credit card. So, if you want to PayPal your opponents to bribe them to be nice to you, that is viable trading. It's there.
Yeah.
And I've done it plenty with Insight. Not PayPal, but cash. So I had to pick it because it's made me rich. By about $8. Okay. What's your number 1, Chris?
I also picked Insight.
Wow.
I like it for the value it adds to the players that have the knowledge. I like it because you can trade away the carrots that aren't winning, but you can also trade away carrots that your opponents might think aren't winning, but actually are, and then I don't know. It's just there's so many different mechanics you can go with this card, and it kind of in some ways it's a good card to trade because it makes whoever has it a target. 'Cause they know at least 5 carrots that aren't gonna win, and who has them. It can be deemed king making if somebody plays it correct. If you do it correctly.
Knowledge is power. It's so interesting because on the surface level, it would seem like knowing 5 losing carrots is worth about $50 on a surface level. But in practice, it's worth significantly more than that. Because if those carrots are in the draw pile still, you can specifically avoid them, and your opponents will specifically not get them. So in some sense, it's worth double that. And $100 on a non-aggressive run card, not including trading strategies. Oh boy.
It does feel really bad when you have all 5 of them, though, and that's your only 5 carrots.
That's quite true, but then poverty pokered them away. Aha! Value. Or when somebody plays wheels on you, you know you don't need to pay for those carrots. There's ways around it. But yes, it definitely is optimal if the carrots are still in the supply when you play this. In full set, I can't say it has quite as much relevance. Just in terms of proportionally. Because knowing 5 out of 58 carrots that are losing doesn't feel as relevant as knowing 5 out of 15. Which is a third of the carrots. That's a lot of value. Okay. The final card. Mikey, what you got?
I realize this has been used in everyone except for except for number 3. Random paintball assault. Yay!
Yay!
This was the one card. The reason that this is my number 1 is because when I looked at all the cards in Violet, this is the one card that I knew I liked, and I didn't have to go through and say, well, this one's not my favorite, and this one's not my favorite, but this one's less not my favorite than this one. Like, this was actually one that I knew I liked right away. And mainly it's just because, as Matthew talked about already, is the idea of getting the Omega Pawn, because that's amazing. I think I've only seen it happen one time, but that was really cool. So I think it was with Faith too.
I think so, yeah, that was a remix game. I think I've seen it once in full set. I've seen it maybe 7 times in remix, but I've played quite a few remix games.
Oh, we did it in full set not that long ago.
Yeah, maybe twice in full set then. I think I was thinking of a different time. Which is interesting, you know? There's so many cards in full set. I happen to draw Ice 9 random paintball. And decide to use Ice 9 and random paintball instead of one of its better uses for the memes.
Yeah, I feel like there's much better uses for Ice 9.
Oh yeah. But it is a meme, and you can pawn cloning it in full set. So you can get double Omega Pawn, so that when your opponent plays Pawn Thief, they get to automatically steal both of them. Haha.
Yay.
Value. The only sad thing is as soon as Cake Batter comes out, it will no longer be a pawn of every color, because it will not be the brown pawn. Because
sad day.
It has been confirmed on the Killer Bunnies website that we're getting brown pawn in Cake Batter, and as soon as that happens, it's Omega -1.
Jeff has to come out with
really
another random paintball assault card, but that includes the brown one too.
Although that means that I hadn't thought of this before. The brown pawn is the most difficult pawn to steal, because it can't be stolen by Pawn Thief, or Pilfer the Pawn, my mistake. Can't be stolen by Bunny Strap Quartet, There is currently, there probably will be in the future, but there's currently no red light district equivalent. Ooh, I'm thinking about that. Brown Pond meta incoming. Watch
Uh-huh.
out.
Sure.
I think it'll at least beat the Pink Pond. uh,
Hmm.
we'll see. We'll see. We're not gonna get too much into cake batter before July because the bunny bits haven't been released yet, so we don't actually have that much to talk about yet. But that will be coming. Looking towards next episode, we will have. Was talking with Joe Slack. We'll have him as a guest, and we'll be talking about. I realized that we hadn't talked about the promo cards that came out this year and the year before. So we will be doing a discussion on those cards, some speculation on potential strategies and all that fun stuff, kind of like we did with London. Trying to think of other announcements. I thought I had more. Did I have more announcements, Mikey?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Well,
Were you going to talk about your lecture series?
yep, Carrot Top Academy has started. It started the day after last episode of Bunny Banter was released. So yes, that has started. There's more information about that elsewhere. I won't get into all of that here, but that will continue. Current plan is to alternate weeks with Bunny Banter. So expect 2 more episodes a week from the release of this episode. Those are already scheduled. So look forward to that. The upcoming episodes will be the fundamentals on Violet, so that's good timing, and the obvious absurdities for the infinite bounce back loop.
Ooh.
Okay, anything you'd like to say, Mikey?
Yeah. So, I don't know. Depending on where you live, I know that in North Dakota, when this comes out, we will officially have begun reopening our economy. And so, depending on upon where you live, your businesses in your area might be opening up again. And just a reminder to all, make sure you stay safe. Continue to practice social distancing, um, and just be smart. And like I've said before, play Killer Bunnies with your family. Go on the tabletop simulator and play some games. Do something to keep yourself active and to keep yourself in good mental health. And with that, Jeff bless.
Jeff bless.